2022 Honda Civic Si, we're doing another Q&A review. I got a list of questions that you guys asked about the new Civic Si. I kind of already reviewed the vehicle this past fall when Honda sent me out to California in the hills outside Malibu. I guess they're more like mountains. And it was an absolutely unforgettable experience driving this very stiff, very responsive sports sedan through the mountains. But one of the first questions that I wanted to address here, Zach Davis asked, how is the hill hold assist? Well, I don't have hills really in South Florida, but I do have elevation changes due to flood zones and things like that. So right now I'm on a hill and I'm already rolling back. And here we go, I'm just gonna stop. There's definitely a decline here. Clutch is in, brake is on, off the brake, and it holds the brake for about a second and then lets you start rolling back. But let's use this 200 horsepower here and get out in front of traffic. The more I drive this Civic Si, the more I fall in love with it. But I need to get into the next question here. And this is a good way to segue into the exterior design, because Antoine Lee Thomas asks, how do I feel about the orange exterior and the red accented interior? Well, this orange exterior is the blazing orange that's all new for the Civic Si. You can't get it on any other Civic that I'm aware of. I wouldn't be surprised if Honda decides to bring it to the new Type R coming out, maybe by the end of this year. So I love this paint color, and the more I see it, the more I fall in love with it. I don't like orange on red. Red and orange have no place together to complement each other, so it does clash. But since the red and black interior is the only choice you have, that's something I would probably choose to live with, because the exterior paint color just looks that good. Antoine's next question talks about rev hang, and is there a good place to shift this vehicle? Well, yes, there is rev hang, and it really is only noticeable after 3,000 RPM. So here's 5,000, and if I want to shift quick, it is pretty jarring. There's 5,000 again. So you do have it, and it's not nearly as noticeable as the 10th generation Civic Si. I prefer, if I can, to shift this vehicle under 3,000 RPM for the most smooth shifting experience. If you rev it much past that, you're going to run into that rev hang drop, and it is a bit jarring, but not nearly as bad as the previous generation Civic Si. Mason asked if I wish this Si, the American spec one, was built off the touring trim that we get in the sedan. That's also available in the Canadian version of this car. The Canadian version of this car is higher spec. So you're gonna have the heated seats, you're gonna have a heated steering wheel, you're gonna have more amenities for sure. But to me, the Civic Si, since in America we only get it in one flavor, your only option is maybe this paint color and whether you want the $200 sport performance tires, or should I say summer tires. So yes, I wish we had more features in it, but for $28K where this car comes in, I still think it's an incredible deal for what you're getting. I don't really care that much about the amenities in this car, because this car is a driver focused car. So does the car take care of me the way I want it to as an enthusiast? And the answer is absolutely yes. The shifter alone is worth the price of admission. The steering feel and the handling is incredible. I don't think you're going to find anything else in this price point that feels as tight and as responsive as the Civic Si. So although we don't get all the extra features like the Canadian version, and you know, after exchange rates, I know that's technically a screaming deal compared to this, but I still feel like what we get in America with the Bose sound system, the larger touchscreen, that's about it. I guess the sunroof, those are the biggest features in this car. I still feel like this car is an incredible deal compared to its competition out there in the American market. I just drove the GLI from Volkswagen, and that has heated ventilated seats, heated steering wheel, has, you know, ambient lighting, which this one does not have ambient lighting, and it has more features, and I'm okay with this vehicle not having it. It is a better driving car. Is it as fast as the GLI? No, that has more power, it's a bigger engine, but this is more enjoyable to drive because it is so much well refined. Even though this is the first year of the new Civic Si on this 11th generation, the steering is dialed in, the suspension is nice and stiff in this vehicle, which might be a game breaker or deal breaker for some of you guys with potholes. But for me, here in South Florida with smooth roads, I love how stiff this car feels. Auto rev matching downshifts are one of my favorite things about this vehicle. I don't have a lot of turns to push this car in Naples, Florida, but pedal to the metal, there's a car just coming off. Oh man, that was a buzzkill. But auto rev matching downshifts is fun, and that's one of my favorite things about this car. It does it so well, so precisely. And the shifter, I never get tired of shifting gears in here because it's so good. Now, Jacob Builds It asks what the decibel levels are on the highway, and this vehicle has a ton of road noise and wind noise. It's not a quiet car. It's not the best touring car by any means, but I'm just going to be quiet for a little bit and you guys can look to see what the decibels are. So it looks like to be about 82, 83 decibels for driving out here. I'm going about 75 behind this Mach-E Mustang, and yeah, I feel like I have to yell a little bit, but I feel like that's par for course for a vehicle of this class. Jacob Builds It also asked, what is the lane keep like? Well, let's turn on radar cruise control. Lane keep is on. Hands off. Kind of trusting this car that doesn't run me into the semi. He says his ILX kind of bounces him around the lane. Well, I'm happy to bring you that this vehicle has pretty good lane keep. Now in town it struggles at lower speeds a little bit, as you might expect, because there's less data being fed into it. It's less predictable like an interstate system is, but here out on the freeway it holds the lane really well, and most of the lane keep is very straight here. Like I said, no hills, straight roads here in South Florida. But yes, it doesn't feel like it's ping-ponging me. It does like to keep me on a little bit of the right side of the lane, so it's not exactly lane centering, but yeah, no ping-pong effect. I am PDQ asked, should I choose an S2000 or this vehicle with a baby on the way? I had my 91 NA Miata, and I had to get rid of it because I had a baby on the way. There's no comparison and there's no choice, to be honest. There's only one choice, and that is to get a four-door with 2 rows of seats. You gotta have it for a family. So I hate to break it to you, you're gonna have to give up maybe one of your true loves in life, the S2000, but this vehicle is absolutely incredible, and it's a very engaging and fun driving experience. You're not gonna regret it. Oh, rev matches are just so good. Frederico asks, how does this compare to the Jetta GLI that I just drove in terms of interior quality? Well, I like the interior design a lot more. The steering wheel is great. I feel like the steering wheel it had a different design, and it was a thicker steering wheel on the GLI. Which one is better is totally personal preference. The materials on the doors were definitely better on the GLI. I just feel like, I mean, we have hard touch here, hard touch, and then you have cloth. And we also had nicer seats in the GLI. It had a better equipped interior, there's no doubt about it. It cost, you know, 4 or 5 grand more than this vehicle. But in terms of interior quality, that vehicle has better quality, but I do like the interior design of this better, especially with the honeycomb grille and how the vents are hidden behind the honeycomb grille. And then you have many shift knobs essentially controlling your vents, and it feels just as good as this shift knob. It's crazy. I get stupid satisfaction just controlling where the air is going, because the vent feel from these little mini stick shifts just feels so good and satisfying and accurate, and has great resistance to it. Anyways, I could make a review just on the stick shift hidden vents behind the honeycomb. Now, compared to the GLI when it comes to comfort, I do find that the GLI had a little bit better comfort. These seats, like I said, not only are they cloth, but the bolstering around my hips and thighs is pretty tight. Around my back, it's really comfortable and it holds me in place. But the GLI's bottom seat was more comfortable. I feel like my legs are really like squeezed in. I have a 32-inch waist, so there shouldn't be any excuse for my legs to feel cramped in this vehicle, but they do. DJ Pleasure Seeking Missile asked, is the SI a bit underwhelming? And do I feel the same way? Absolutely not. I think the SI has exceeded where it should have been. if we look at the last generation, it had a ton of body roll, more rev hang, less, well, it technically had more power at the top end, but this has better torque and better power delivery compared to the last one. This shifter pretty much taken straight out of the Type R, and you have the auto rev matching. Like, this vehicle is a wonderful daily enthusiast car. Like, 200 horsepower is perfect for this vehicle. I know you guys probably want more, and I know the GLI has more, but I can wring this thing out, go balls to the wall, act as silly as I want, and I'm not going to get in too much trouble because I just have 200 horsepower. So this vehicle also handles just so well. When I throw it into turns, which hopefully there's no one in front of me up here, I'm going to throw it into this turn, auto rev matching second gear. Looks like we have a ridge line in front of us. Okay, let's make sure that's out. So keep it in second gear here. Just going to throw it in, going about 30 miles an hour. Accelerate out of the turn, floor it. Like, there, I just like completely max this car out on the streets and I hit 60 miles an hour. Like, this vehicle to me meets and if not exceeds all the expectations of the previous Civic SIs, and you really have to enjoy this vehicle by driving it and seeing by yourself if this vehicle is underwhelming, overwhelming. For me, it has shot above what I was expecting, and to me that's a big win. And the fact that this vehicle comes in at $28K, where a lot of its rivals are either a little, I'm going to run this, a lot of its rivals are a little bit more expensive or they're really close. Like, I have the Sentra SR in my garage right now, and it does have some more features in this car, but there's no way it's going to bring me as much happiness as this Civic Si does. Adrian Green wants to know how this 11th gen SI would compare against a 10th gen SI in a quarter-mile race. I mean, it's going to be up to driver capacity at that point in time. There's only a 5 horsepower difference. This power delivery is superior on this vehicle, even though it doesn't have quite that extra 5 horsepower. It's going to come down, in my opinion, more than likely to just driver expertise and how fast they can launch and shift this vehicle. But I could be wrong. There are reports saying that this engine produces a lot more than the 200 horsepower. Some people saying that over 220 horsepower to the wheels. I find that really hard to believe, but it's possible. But they're so similar on paper that it really is just going to come down to driver expertise, I'm pretty sure. David Grit is asking about the Bose sound system. How does it compare to like the Bose and the Mazda 3? I would say it's very comparable. It might not have quite as much bass as the Mazda 3 if I remember correctly, but it's been a while since I've driven that car. You can max the sound system out. I don't get any distortion. It maxes out at 40 volume on the dial. I think it sounds really good for a car of this class. Now, he's also concerned about the sound leakage outside the vehicle when the sound is all the way up. So I actually tested this. I put on, sports radio so I wouldn't get flagged for copyright music or anything like that. And I cranked it all the way to 40, and it sounds like you're in the vehicle, even if you're 10, 15, 20 feet away. There's hardly any sound insulation, it feels like. It's all leaking outside the vehicle. So that might be a positive thing. It depends on who you're asking, because this Miata guy's looking at me, which is weird because the camera was like right into his cabin. Anyways, that might not be a bad thing depending on who you are. I prefer to have sound insulation, and I can hear that F450 like it was in my ear right there. So we know this vehicle is loud, and that doesn't surprise me that the sound system is easily heard outside the vehicle. Look at that Fiero. Oh man, look at this Fiero, guys. That is sick. I'm just gonna drive behind him, why not? You don't see mid-engine relics very often down here. Well, unless they're like Ferraris or something. But that is from an era, a long past. There's a chick driving that Fiero. That's badass. Anyways, and lastly, as I finish up this review on the Civic Si, Tony Kim asked about what is Honda gonna do for Acura to make the brand as best as possible to make it great again, as some of you would say. The Integra really should be the perfect Civic Si. Like, this interior quality and amenities is just lacking. I wish we had at least leatherette seats instead of these cloth seats, and it would have been nice to have a heated steering wheel, heated seat. I mean, we had heated seats on the last generation Si, so that's unfortunate that way. I feel like we're going back in features, but the driving experience is so much better and cleaner in here that it, you know, kind of washes away those things. But how's Honda going to help Acura? So back to that final question to finish out this review. Well, I think they're on the right track for the most part. I just drove the MDX Type S, and I absolutely loved that vehicle. I couldn't find anything that I didn't like about it other than not having a touchscreen, but that's more of an Acura thing, and it's not specific to that vehicle. So hopefully Acura is bringing us a touchscreen in the new Integra, like we have a really nice touchscreen that's just so easy for me to get to. So hopefully we get some of that touchscreen treatment in the Acura, not forced to only use a True Touch interface. But what else are they going to be doing? Well, it's kind of hard to say. This will eventually get a Type S, and that's probably just going to be the 2-liter. So it's going to be a nicer Civic Type R is what I'm feeling. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you know, the top of the line Integra should just be a nicer Civic Si, but if it costs 8 to 10 grand more, it's not worth it, because this vehicle is already so good for what it is at 28K. But as we look further into the future for Acura, we have electrification coming. It looks like they're ditching hybrids altogether and going fully electric. Their first electric vehicle will be an Acura version of the Cadillac Lyriq, which I'm not super excited about, but Honda and GM have been working together for a long time on a few different projects, Super Cruise being one of them. So yeah, after that, it's going to be the Sony show. It's going to be Sony and Honda working together to build electric cars. We don't know the full details of how that would fit into the Honda Acura. Some people are saying that Sony-Honda relationship is just going to create a new brand. I don't think so, but we don't have any confirmation there either. So there's a lot of things just up in the air for Acura and Honda as a result. After 2, 3, 4 years from now, especially when we get into battery electric vehicles. Honda is the most aggressive Japanese automaker when it comes to their deadlines for full electrification. They want to be fully electric by 2040, and of course Acura will have to play into that as well. So Acura will be an extremely heavily electrified brand. My guess, by the late 2020s. So I feel like this Integra coming up is going to be the last maybe really fun to drive small gasoline powered sedan or hatchback. But I need to cut myself off. The Civic Si, even though it's not as well equipped as some of you guys would want, like the Canadian version, it is just so much fun to drive. And for 28K here in the States, there's nothing, in my opinion, that comes to close to this in terms of driving feel, handling, manual transmission, accuracy, and just overall pleasure to drive. The only other vehicle that brings me this much satisfaction driving a manual that I've driven in the recent history would be the Mazda MX-5 Miata. That takes it to another level, being that it's so much smaller, cuter, and a removable top. But this is more of the practical version of that car in terms of driver engagement and driver enjoyment. But anyways, guys, I need to end there. If you would like to see more Q&A reviews, definitely put it in the comments below. Hit the like button, subscribe. I'd love to have you guys along the ride as we surpass 150,000 subscribers together. It's just amazing. Thank you guys for all the support. You're making my dreams come true. I really appreciate you. Anyways, I'll catch you in the next video, and then more upcoming Honda and Acura videos, of course. Catch you in the next one. Peace out.